morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is you are in the world. I'm Kirsten Carey, and I want to talk today about procrastination. So, I want to talk about procrastination, specifically why high achievers do it. I was talking to a woman just a couple of days ago who she said, I'm a high achiever. I get things done. I've always been somebody who does like the best out of the group in business, in life, in sports. She's still, even at 44, was a really high achieving person in sports. And she owns her own business, and she is, amazing, has lots of educational background. So it was a really interesting conversation as we talked. And I said, well, what do you really think the biggest issues are for you to getting to where you want to go? And she said, I procrastinate. And so I have a dog who's very excited about her bone right now. Let me grab that from her. Because that is going to be very, very loud and annoying during the rest of this call. So as I continued to talk to her about how she's achieved and the ways that she's achieved, she said, procrastination has always been an issue for me. And I said, yeah, and I hear that. It's very common to hear that from high achieving people. So let's talk about the reason we slide into what most people would describe as a procrastination space. So the first reason is it's a form of fight or flight. So when you look at the fight or flight response, usually most people only think about the fighting part or the fleeing part. But there's actually two other pieces to that. There's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Let's talk about the freeze component. Freeze is often what's happening to us when we go into more of a procrastination type of energy. So when we go into freeze, it's the body triggering into the central nervous system, triggering into the response system to tell us that it feels like there's something wrong, that we're in danger. So high achievers are really used to pushing through, getting to the other side, going beyond what their body has been telling them is safe for them to do. And they do it a lot of the times because they're trying to meet this attachment they have to who they really are, what their personality is, who they see themselves as. And if they see themselves as somebody who is constantly achieving at a high level and they don't feel like they're achieving at a high level, sometimes they'll go into this freeze mode, which will shut everything down. So it's kind of an all or nothing kind of situation where if I'm not achieving at the highest level, then I shift completely 180 degrees and I shut down, and then I don't do anything. So there's such an attachment to our underlying subconscious to continually always show up in the way that we identify as ourselves. So if we identify as a high achiever, someone who gets stuff done, and we're struggling with something, it's something that's newer, or we're not getting it as quickly as we're used to getting it, or we're not the highest achiever in that moment, sometimes that gives us an identity conflict, which can then put us into a tailspin, into fight or flight or freeze. So we freeze and then we shut down and go the other direction. And now we are not doing anything, right? So we were already feeling like we were failing. Now we're doing nothing. Or we're stalling because we don't like the feeling of not achieving. So that's the first one. We're going into the fight or flight response, into the actual freeze response. The second thing is we don't see the benefit of doing the thing. So whatever the thing is, whatever we're procrastinating and not doing, we don't see the benefit to doing that thing. So and we may consciously not see the benefit or subconsciously not see the benefit because it's not actually hitting us at our highest value. So doing that thing, let's just say it's washing the dishes. If we don't see washing the dishes to satisfy one of our highest values, which is maybe achieving more sales at work, if we're one of our biggest, highest values is it's all achieving, right? When we're in achievers. But if one of our highest values is achieving at work, or bringing in more income, or having more sales at work, or winning more games if we're playing sports. If we're not doing those, if washing the dishes isn't going to directly help us with those highest values, we often won't do those things. And it's not that we're bad people. It's just that in our subconscious is constantly looking at what will help us achieve our highest true underlying value. That's where I want to get super clear here. You have to really understand what your real dominating underlying true value is. So if one of your underlying true values is still being seen for your efforts, and you don't feel seen by doing the dishes, nobody's patting you on the back and nobody's celebrating you for getting the dishes done, then you're not necessarily going to make sure the dishes get done. But if you're going into a situation where you feel seen and you feel heard and you feel acknowledged for your accomplishments, let's just say at work, people are rallying behind you because you just had the best sales quarter you've ever had. People are rallying behind you because you just did the architecture for one of the the highest paid buildings that's ever going to be built in the city. You're going to get a lot of accolades for that. Nobody's typically getting excited when you're doing the dishes, right? So you have to start seeing what one of the underlying things is that you really want to be seen and heard. Now, if everybody gets excited when you do the dishes and everybody's praising you for getting that done, that actually may become a higher priority item than getting the architectural drawings and designs done for the biggest, most successful potential building in the city. Because it's truly our underlying attachment to who we want to be and who we feel we need to be seen is going to have an influence over what is driving what we take action on. So you have to really look at, if I'm not getting something done, even if it's something that you would think as a high achiever you would want to have done, and you're not getting it done, you're not taking action on it, you're delaying on it, you're stalling on it, you're finding a million other things to do but that, and you want to take a step back and you want to say, okay, how would my underlying subconscious think this is benefiting me? How would my underlying subconscious believe this is actually connected to something that is important to me? And then that takes me to number 3. The activity or the thing that we're procrastinating is attached to when it's attached to an underlying trauma or moment of discomfort, a lot of times we won't do that thing, even though we know it's going to help us to get it done. So we have to start looking at what some of our underlying connected traumas are to our identity and who we see ourselves to be, or who we see ourselves having to be in order to receive the high achievement or the accolades or the reason we get things done. A lot of times it has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with the thing itself. It has to do with the approval. If you grew up in a situation where you didn't feel seen or heard, if you grew up in a situation where you didn't feel that your parents noticed you, if you grew up in a situation where your parents were alcoholics, they were people who weren't consistent, they were people who you didn't know what kind of person you were getting based on a variety of different things that kept them not necessarily stable emotionally or mentally or physically. One of the underlying things that may be a high value for you in your subconscious, which you may not realize, is being seen, is being paid attention to. So you may be doing a lot of these things. You may have been a high achiever or became a high achiever because you were trying to get someone to pay attention. So if you had a father, for instance, who really noticed when you were achieving in sports, but he didn't notice you at any other time, you may have become a really high achiever in sports. And then you knew how to push and drive to get there. But when you won, you didn't necessarily get anything really out of it. And you felt defeated or unhappy or let down, even though you won. Because what the biggest reason for you to push in the sports arena was to get the attention of your father. Now, you may still be on that drive now, not realizing it. So you're now at work pushing through, you're getting to the other side, you're receiving the accolades, but you're not necessarily getting the attention that you so desperately really wanted when you were a child. So we have to start looking at, it's not connecting, the achievement isn't connecting to the biggest underlying reason that you're actually pushing for the achievement. And it's not the achievement that's making you happy. It was the attention or the accolades that you were receiving once you got there. When you're not benefiting from the experience of the thing that you're procrastinating, or the thing you're procrastinating doing is not getting you that attention, if that's the underlying wound, then you're going to keep spinning out and potentially continue to procrastinate even more, because now you're trying harder, you're getting less attention, and you're not getting what it is you really need, which is actually starting to mess with your identity and the attachment you have to doing the thing in the first place. So this is where it starts to get a little complicated and it gets a little confusing. But one of the things that we do to work with our clients, we see the procrastination, and it's not that they're incapable of doing it. It's not that they can't take action. It's they're not seeing the connection to their highest value. So we'd have to get in there and understand what is truly your highest value. And it's typically not what you consciously immediately think is your highest value. It's usually in an underlying stage, an underlying piece of your subconscious that is holding on to the idea of the most important thing to me is this. One of the clients that I worked with for years, one of the attachments that he had was making money. And it was always wrapped around making money. And I knew, of course, it's not about the money. There's usually an attachment, an emotional attachment to the money. So we start to ask the question, what's the emotional attachment to money? Where did that come from? So we finally got around to the understanding that one of the emotional attachments to the money was that his parents used to fight about money a lot. And his mother at some point got a job and she started making a lot of money, more money than his father, and eventually ended up leaving the family once she made more money. Now, he had an attachment or a connection to when you make more money, it divides the family. Now, consciously, he didn't see that. As we continued around the work that we do and the tools that we use, we were able to flesh that out. And he started seeing that a lot of the things that he was doing, that he would make more money and his wife would make more money, but then they would somehow spend all of the money. And he could never seem to get it ahead, no matter how much money they were making. And when you realize that in his wounded subconscious, when someone in the family makes more money and they're able to have that money and they're not spending beyond that money, they leave. There's an abandonment question going on. There's an abandonment fear. So some of these things hang around in our subconscious for decades without us realizing that they're driving a lot of our conversation in our subconscious. They're driving a lot of the values which drive our decisions, which drive us sometimes into staying in a procrastination state because we need to be stuck where we are because something different might be scarier, or something different might pull us away, or something different might be dangerous. So it's a freeze, again, response. So one of the things I'd recommend if you're saying, hey, I'm a procrastinator, is to not try to push your way through it, not try to will your way out of it, not try to white knuckle through it. Because typically it's not just that you don't know how to schedule yourself. Typically it's not because you can't take action. It's because there's something in the subconscious that's underlying, that's actually forcing you to stay in that stuck procrastination stage, which actually spins you into more of a chemical response, which can lead you into more depression. So my recommendation is to start looking at, okay, what is potentially the underlying reason for this? Because it benefits me in some way. I know this sounds crazy, but it benefits me in some way to procrastinate. Otherwise, our subconscious wouldn't have us do it. So take a deep breath. I have an event coming up in October that I want to talk to you about. So we've got just 4 weeks, and actually it's already up. I didn't even realize it was up on the screen, but it's Recharge. It's an event that's going on October 25th and 26th in Scottsdale. It's an actual in-person event. Nourish123challenge.com. I want you to go check it out. But it's specifically for women who just don't have the luxury of burning out, don't have the luxury of finding themselves tail spinning in the same patterns over and over and over. It's for women who are high achievers who want something to change, but they don't know the how anymore because they've tried all the things. And most of us that are high achievers will try all of the things by ourselves. We stay up all in our headspace. We try to figure it out. We try to work it through because we're smart. We typically get stuff done. We're able to move through. We're able to get stuff done. We've achieved things at higher levels, but we're at a place, and if you're feeling this way, I want you to go check out nourish123challenge.com, that you're in a place or what used to work isn't getting you there anymore, or you're finding you're in this grind of doing things, having to do them higher, more to get the same results, or you're doing things more and getting fewer results. There's typically a block that's going on underneath the surface that you have hidden from yourself. Our defense mechanisms were created for us to be blocked by us because we thought at a deeper level that we were protecting ourselves. So if you want to recharge, you want to learn, you want to get in, like roll up your sleeves and really get into this, then I highly recommend you check out our event. It's in Scottsdale, October 25th and 26th, called Recharge. And again, it's for high achieving women who want to get past the blocks that you're feeling right now. And whatever you've tried hasn't gotten you out of your own way. It's going to be an intimate setting. We have very few tickets left available. It's going to be a small number of people. And we're going to be working for 2 days on how do you get to those underlying pieces? How do you flesh them out? How do you even see them and recognize them when they're there? And then what do you do in order to remove those blocks that you've set up that you don't even realize were there? You just know you don't feel right. You may be seeing an increase in thyroid issues, hormonal distress, potentially digestive distress. You're feeling more fatigue, which doesn't make sense to you because maybe you're sleeping all night, but you're getting up and you don't feel refreshed. Something has shifted, something has changed, and you can't work your way out of it. I can help you with that. So again, we're doing this very specific event, October 25th and 6th. It's actually in Scottsdale. We have just a few more tickets that are still left for this because we have a very limited number of space for this. I'll be feeding you on both days for lunch. We'll make sure it's completely gluten-free and dairy-free and all the things you need to be nourishing your body so you can learn at a higher level. You can achieve more. And how do you do that without burning yourself out? Or how do you come back from it when you feel like you have already teetered over the edge on burnout? So I would love to see you. Absolutely love to see you in Scottsdale in person. I really feel that a lot of what happened with COVID and a lot of the shutdowns and a lot of us going online, though it's brilliant that we can do so much work online and we can work with people all over the world. But we have a disconnect going on. I'm seeing this vibration of burnout go at a higher level for women, high achievers than ever before. So we need something else. The in-person events are desperately needed for those of us who vibrate with other people and really are impacted by that. And you being on a screen all the time with somebody else isn't helping to get moved past a lot of these challenges and underlying issues that stop the central nervous system from resetting. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. We're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to get down into the dirt and really make some shifts at this event. 2 days, 10 to 4 both days, in Scottsdale, Arizona, at one of the most beautiful times of the year to be here in Arizona. Come out to Scottsdale, visit us, come into this event, take a deep breath, realize that we really want you in this space for 2 days so that you're not getting distracted by all the other things. You're not trying to do something online that's going to still take you into 15 different places when things are pinging all over your screen. And Zoom is just not necessarily making you feel connected in the way that you need to in order to undo some of these underlying blocks and issues that are stopping you from getting where you want to go. All right, go check it out, nourish123challenge.com. I would love to see you grabbing one of the last few tickets that we have available for this event that's on just 4 weeks. All right, you guys have a good rest of your day. And